In a quiet, snow-covered town, an ancient legend stirs to life. The Wendigo, a monstrous creature born from darkness and hunger, awakens, thirsting for blood. As the wind howls and shadows creep through the trees, a group of survivors must face their deepest fears and battle an evil far older than they can imagine. Will they survive its deadly grip, or will they fall prey to its insatiable hunger? The hunt begins now. The wind howled through the barren landscape as Nathan stood at the edge of the small town. His breath came out in visible puffs, swallowed by the endless darkness. It had been days since the strange events began to unfold, days since the Wendigo's shadow first fell over them. The icy winds of the wilderness no longer felt like nature. They felt like something far darker, far older. Ava and Derek were both asleep inside the library, but Nathan couldn't close his eyes. Not now. The Wendigo was out there, somewhere, its presence lingering like an unwelcome shadow, an eternal reminder of the nightmares they'd only just begun to understand. As Nathan sat by the dim fire, the crackle of the flames provided little comfort. In the eerie silence of the storm, his mind replayed the moments before they had arrived here. The cryptic journal, the strange symbols on the map, and the warnings they had ignored, thinking they were just folklore. But now there was no denying the truth. The Wendigo, that ancient creature, was real, and it had come for them. The wind outside rattled the window, and Nathan's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden crackling sound. His heart skipped as the emergency radio blared to life, an urgent voice breaking through the static. "This is Station 9. We heard your message. We're 5 miles out. Prepare yourselves. We're coming in." Nathan froze, his hand tightening around the radio. He looked out into the storm, but the snow obscured everything. A distant howl split the night air. The Wendigo was close, too close. "Stay quiet," Nathan whispered to Eva and Derek, who had stirred at the noise. "We might not be alone for much longer." The storm continued to rage as the group set out toward the unknown. Their path led them deeper into the wilderness, their boots crunching through thick layers of snow. Each step seemed to take them farther from safety and closer to the heart of the creature's domain. "There's no turning back now," Derek muttered, his breath forming mist in the cold air. "We should have waited for backup." Nathan didn't reply. His thoughts were consumed with the journal, the clues they had uncovered. The ritual was their only chance to defeat the Wendigo, but no one knew if it would even work or if it would just make things worse. Hours passed as they trudged through the snow, the air growing colder and thicker. The trees, once towering giants, now seemed to crouch, like silent watchers in the night. Something was out there, always out of sight, just beyond the range of their flashlights. "Do you hear that?" Eva whispered, her voice tense. Her eyes scanned the trees. "The howling. It's getting closer." Nathan nodded, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. It was the Wendigo's call. Suddenly, a rustle in the trees, a snap of branches. The air grew still, almost suffocatingly so. And then, a figure appeared in the distance, tall, skeletal, with antlers stretching into the sky, its eyes glowing with hunger. The Wendigo. It had found them. The creature's form towered above them, its grotesque, emaciated body swaying like a twisted tree in the wind. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural, malevolent light. It moved forward, slow but purposeful, its claws scraping the ground, each step bringing it closer to the group. "Stay back!" Nathan shouted, but his voice trembled with a fear he couldn't control. Derek grabbed his shoulder, his grip tight. "We need to act fast, now!" Nathan fumbled with the journal, flipping through the pages to find the words. The Wendigo's growl echoed through the trees, a deep, resonant sound that sent chills down their spines. Eva was the first to react, grabbing the salt they had packed in their bags and scattering it in a circle around them. She had learned the ritual steps as quickly as she could, the urgency of their situation driving her to focus. "Help me," she urged Nathan, her voice tight with fear. The Wendigo screeched, a piercing sound that rattled their bones. The creature lunged. It was fast, faster than they expected. Nathan barely had time to react as the Wendigo's claws swiped just inches from his face. He stumbled back, nearly falling into the salt circle, but the creature didn't stop. It was drawn to their fear, to their terror. But Eva acted first. She grabbed the journal and began reciting the ritual aloud, her voice trembling but steady. The Wendigo hissed in pain, its form shuddering as the ritual began to take hold. The air crackled with dark energy, and for a moment Nathan thought he saw a glimpse of something. A shadow in the Wendigo's eyes that wasn't entirely human, but the creature was relentless. With a sudden roar, it vanished into the shadows, leaving only a trail of frozen air in its wake. The trees fell silent again. They found shelter in an abandoned cabin that night, huddling together by the fire as they caught their breath. But Nathan knew they hadn't won. Not yet. The Wendigo was still out there, and the ritual they had performed was only the beginning. "We need to finish this," Nathan said, his voice grave. "This isn't over." Eva and Derek exchanged wary looks, but nodded. They knew too well that the creature they faced was no ordinary beast. The Wendigo had the power to manipulate the minds of those it hunted. It had preyed on their fears, on their weaknesses. But Nathan refused to be its victim. The journal gave them hope, but only if they completed the ritual. But what they needed now wasn't just the knowledge of ancient words. They needed to confront the Wendigo in its lair, to face it down and defeat it once and for all. But first, they needed to survive the night. The wind howled louder than it had in weeks, shaking the walls of the library. Nathan sat by the radio waiting for any signal, any sign that someone was listening. Eva and Derek had fallen asleep by the fire, exhausted from their journey, but Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something was still out there, watching, waiting. A crackling noise broke the silence. Then, the familiar haunting voice of the emergency broadcast channel. "This is Station 9. We're 5 miles out. We heard your message. We're coming in." Nathan's heart pounded in his chest. He rushed to the window and peered into the stormy night, but saw nothing. The road was empty, the town still dark and silent. "We're not safe," Eva whispered, her voice thick with fear as she woke up. "It's still out there, Nathan. It's watching." "I know," Nathan replied, his eyes scanning the dark woods beyond the library. He stepped back from the window and grabbed his pack, tightening the straps. The journal was still with him, and despite everything, he knew it was their only hope. The words, the rituals, everything they had learned so far pointed toward one final step, one final fight. "We're not waiting for them," Nathan said. "We need to finish this ourselves." Derek stirred awake, rubbing his eyes. "What do you mean? We've already done everything. We've tried." "No, Derek, we haven't. We've only dealt with one. There are more, and they're hunting the ones who survived." Nathan grabbed a handful of salt from his pack, ready to head out into the wilderness once more. The wind outside screamed like the creature itself, clawing at the edges of the world. "We finished what we started," Nathan muttered, "once and for all." Eva grabbed her coat, her face pale but determined. "We're with you, Nathan. Wherever you go, we go." Derek's eyes flicked between them, uncertainty still etched on his face. But after a moment he nodded. "You really think we can end this?" Nathan looked at the dark woods, where the shadow of the Wendigo had first appeared. "I think we have to." They moved swiftly, out of the library and toward the same path that had taken them into the forest days before. The snow crunched beneath their boots, and the trees loomed like silent sentinels, casting long, twisted shadows in the dying light of the day. The air was frigid, the cold biting through their clothes, but they pressed on, following the same trail back toward the sacred grove. The wind intensified as they approached, the howling almost deafening now. But Nathan refused to stop, the fire of determination burning brighter within him than the cold that sought to consume him. When they finally reached the grove, they could see the faint glow of the fire still smoldering, a faint remnant of the ritual they had completed days before. The rocks and trees stood silent, watching, as if waiting for them to finish what they had started. "Here," Nathan said, stopping in front of the stone slab at the center of the grove. He dropped to his knees and set the journal down beside him, flipping it open to the final page. He read the words aloud, the ancient language of the Algonquin rolling off his tongue with a precision he didn't know he had. The fire on the slab flickered and flared, as if answering his call. The ground trembled beneath them. And then, the voice. the low guttural growl that they had heard only in their nightmares. "I've waited so long," the Wendigo whispered from the shadows. "I've waited for you." The creature emerged from the dark, its emaciated form stretching impossibly tall, its eyes glowing with that unnatural light. The antlers on its head scraped the sky, and its elongated fingers clawed at the earth as it advanced. But this time, Nathan wasn't afraid. This time, he knew what had to be done. The Wendigo screeched, its body convulsing, shifting, its face rippling and changing. First it took the form of his mother, then Eva's brother, then Derek's father. But Nathan didn't flinch. He stood tall, holding the journal high as he spoke the words that would bind the creature once more. "To remember is to defeat you. To forget is to feed you." The Wendigo let out a deafening roar, its body shaking, struggling against the invisible force that held it in place. It was too strong, too powerful, but Nathan kept reading the incantation, his voice rising higher with each word. The fire on the stone slab blazed hotter, brighter, until it illuminated the entire grove. The creature stumbled back, its limbs snapping as the fire seemed to eat away at its form. Its face twisted into an agonizing expression of rage. "I will never be forgotten," the Wendigo hissed. "I will never stop hunting." Nathan's hands trembled, but he did not stop. He couldn't. "We remember," he said, his voice steady now. "We remember every name, every life you took, and we will make sure the world remembers you, but not as a legend, not as a myth." He glanced at Derek and Eva, who stood with him, faces grim but resolute. "We remember you," Nathan repeated, "as the monster you are." And then, with a final cry of anguish, the Wendigo collapsed into a pile of ash. The fire, once so fierce, snuffed out in an instant. The air grew still again, eerily quiet. The grove was peaceful, but Nathan knew it wasn't over. The Wendigo was gone, for now. But its hunger, its curse, would never be fully erased. There would always be whispers, always be remnants of the creature's twisted power lingering in the corners of the world. But there was hope, too, because in that moment, Nathan understood. The Wendigo could be defeated, but only by the strength of those who remembered. Those who fought not just for their survival, but for the memory of those who had been lost. As they turned to leave the grove, Derek gave Nathan a long, silent look. "What now?" Glanced back at the spot where the Wendigo had fallen. "Now we spread the word. We tell their stories, and we keep fighting." The three of them walked back through the snow, the weight of their journey heavy in their bones. They knew the world would never be the same. The shadows would always be there, lurking just beyond the light. But there was a power in remembering, a power in fighting back, and that power was enough. Back in town, the survivors gathered. Word spread quickly, and soon others who had been hiding, those who had fled the Wendigo's grasp, began to return. Together they formed a community that was stronger than it had ever been, a community that would stand against the darkness. But even as they rebuilt, the legends of the Wendigo persisted. It was a shadow in the minds of those who had lived through the terror, a warning for those who would listen, and a reminder that the hunger of the Wendigo could never truly be silenced. It would always wait. But now so would they, and they would never forget.